Welcome again to the mini-series Sew Along videos. This week we are looking at stretch geese and crisscross.
Crisscross, yeah. Flying geese blocks.
Two flying geese blocks, that's right. So, similarities with last video's stuff. A lot of the same kind of tips and tricks. Stretch geese is very similar to the triangle.
Pretty much exactly the same, just different shape.
But they're all aligned rather than being different. So those same tips and tricks from last video about avoiding cutting off the tips and piecing all the sections not at the same time but individually. Those tips all apply to this video. So if you need a refresher on that or didn't see the video, go back and watch that because those same kind of tips and tricks apply. Stretch geese is kind of fun. I like the variation where you could make a really long strip of it. I think that would look really cool along like the top of a bag. Or
I always talk about this shirt that Jennifer Sampu had. This shirt that she wore at Quilt Market. You were there that year. I don't know if you remember it, but they weren't tiny geese. They were regular sized geese.
Yeah.
But she had, I think it was applique. She'd applique geese all the way around her shirt. It was really neat, and I was always like, that'd be really cool to do like tiny geese.
Yeah, you could do that.
Yeah.
Like piece it into a garment.
Into a garment or something like that. It'd be really neat. I mean, even just like a strap on like a shirt or something. I don't know. I don't really do much garment. I don't do any garment sewing.
Yeah.
But it'd be kind of cool to see it like as an element of something. Like obviously I like strips of geese. So yeah, go figure.
Cool inspiration there.
Yeah.
No, it's a fun one. Here's a couple examples. This is a ombre color version, but
That's
just
basic.
the basic block.
Yeah, basic block.
Basic 4-inch block. I really like this version. So this is everything the same size, but you cut it into little groups of 4 and turn it into more of a plus block. So that's a fun thing.
A really nice, easy variation.
Yeah, that would kind of break it up a little too if you feel like you were struggling to keep everything in line. That this probably would be a little bit more simple, maybe.
Yeah, I think so. You could do them in a loop too if you wanted to go like in a circle, like go 1, 2, 3, 4 all around and around, so they're kind of chasing each other. That's something I talked about doing last time, and then I wound up on this version of it instead. But
it works well with this quilt.
Yeah, it works
with all these different shapes.
Exactly, right.
Since Carly quilted it so awesomely,
awesome.
as always.
As she does.
But I love how she outlined the shape. So it's almost like all the blocks end up really you're able to really see the shape that
of
the
each
blocks,
individual one.
that the foreground ends up making, not so much the square blocks. So I think that's pretty cool.
Yeah.
So, yeah, that's stretch geese.
So that's stretch geese.
I think that's about it.
That's it for stretch geese, I would say.
Yeah.
We're going to dive in a little bit more thoroughly into crisscross. So the thing I like to say about crisscross is it's definitely one of the more challenging blocks in the mini-series. So approach this one with a good night's sleep and a full stomach of food.
A little more patience.
A little more patience.
Yeah.
It's not impossible. It just takes, there's just like we've got a little bit more tips and tricks for this one to make it easier. But basically, the big thing that I want you to try for this, and this will apply for, let's say you're doing this version of the triangle geese block or things like that. Anytime that you're joining pieces together in the, these mini subsections together, this is how I kind of like to do it. I like to.
This is our first one doing this.
This is the first one where it's mandatory.
Yeah.
Like kind of like where you have
where
to do it to get the block. You're joining parts
to
together.
Get to the block.
Yeah.
So this is a good introduction to if you need to join little parts together.
Little parts together.
How to do it.
Right. Exactly. 100%.
How do we do it?
Basically, the big thing is that I do not. Hang on. It's super important, so I'm going to not stutter, and I'm going to say it again really clearly. You're going to cut your blocks out without seam allowance. All right. So there is seam allowance on the blocks, which are there if you're not comfortable trying this method, right? We didn't want to just not put seam allowance on the blocks. It's important to have it there because most people like to have it there.
When you say blocks, you mean the templates.
The templates, I'm sorry, yes.
So when you're cutting out the template,
when you're cutting your template shape,
leave the seam allowance off of the template.
I like to leave the seam allowance off. So what that means, I'm going to come a little closer. So what that means is we'll be sewing off of here. We're gonna be adding seam allowance to the block. It's just that we're going to do it after we've pieced everything. So when I'm coming in here and sewing, I'm gonna have like bigger or larger pieces of fabric in the background here, so that so that I have enough fabric there to create seam allowance, and I'm gonna be sewing well off of the edges and everything like that. And then when I'm done with that, I'm going to come in and just add 1/4 inch seam allowance all the way around the edges.
When you're trimming it.
When you're trimming up the block.
To prepare to join the pieces.
Exactly. And so those pieces will all, because the thing that's nice about that, it'll apply when we talk about the curved cabin block as well. You're basically just going to give yourself a really easy, clean visual of where you can join where the pieces are going to come together. You're not going to have any paper at all, because there are a lot of little edges and stuff like that in this block. We want to reduce as much bulk as we can. The thread will come in handy a lot. The Deco-Bob thread will help a lot with this block because there's a lot of bulk in it. But the other thing that's really going to help is not having any paper whatsoever getting in the way. So just try sewing with this no seam allowance, all of those pieces separate, and I think that you'll have a pretty good result from that.
So the edge of the paper still acts as kind of where you're going to sew.
Where you're going to sew.
Sewing right along the edge of the paper instead of through the paper.
Exactly right. So instead
you still have a super nice straight edge.
It's still there. You have your clean visual of like to see where everything's going to come together. The other thing I like to do when I'm joining pieces together is I like to what was I going to say? Darn it, it slipped right out of my mind.
Glue based?
Oh yeah, thank you. Just based in general.
Okay.
You could glue baste it, yes.
Okay.
You could glue baste it, or you could just thread baste it.
Okay.
So you put it through your machine. So like a lot of these blocks we're working with a smaller stitch length. Lengthen your stitch length to like a 3 or something like that, just to get your pieces together. Make sure that everything is lining up as it should, and then go back in with a smaller stitch length.
That way, if
to
it
secure
isn't lining up and you need to take it apart,
it comes out
super
really easy,
and the fabric isn't
going to get all warped and messed up. Exactly.
Yeah. Okay, that's a great idea.
And I would be lying to you if I didn't tell you that when I do this block, every once in a while I have to baste, unstitch, and do it. It's just part for the course. It's it's just it's not a hard. It just takes a little more time. It just takes a little more patience.
Just slow down a little
with it.
I don't think it's gonna.
Don't sew as quickly as I speak, and then you'll be fine.
No one can sew that quickly.
I know. it's pretty fast.
You're not even talking really fast.
I know, this isn't even like,
No,
this is like me at like my baseline. This is like me chill.
Yeah, this is super, taking your time.
It's true.
Speak.
It's definitely true. Yeah.
When we're planning these things, you should hear him talk. It's like,
it's the same.
I can't even keep up. I'm like, as long as you got it, I'm good. I'll be there. I'm fine. Alright, so what do you got there?
So yeah, this is one version of both of them actually. You see the stretch piece there.
That's pretty.
And then there's that one there. And then this is a nice little variation a couple of people played with last time, which I really love a lot.
I love this.
This is so pretty.
People should do this.
Yes.
Or they should do whatever they want.
They should, but this is a nice one to consider. So it's really simple when you get to the center here. That little center section that you have, like this kind of square in a square block that's in there. The background there just becomes the same as the last piece of background in each of these sections to create this really pretty little 8-point star in the center. Really, really nice, lovely little touch. It totally takes this block to the next level, I think. It's a really, really nice little thing. Yeah.
And I think I don't know, it feels like it softens that part for some reason.
Definitely.
It feels like the pieces almost come together better when you have that part in there.
It creates seamlessness, I think, a little bit. It really feels like one continuous block like that, which is a really, really nice thing.
That's a great variation.
Yeah.
I don't know who did that first.
Yeah, I was just about to say, there were a few people who did it last time. I think in my post from last year, I should have checked before we started the video, but it's in there. It's listed with whom I drew inspiration from for that block. So go back and check it out.
Really
also, while we're on the subject, like you can go back and check out all the videos from the last Sew Along are still there. You can totally check those out too. But
if you're looking for ideas of finished projects to make with any of the blocks or all the blocks, going and looking at the mini-series hashtags from previous events or the previous event, I should say, is really great. There's tons and tons of good ideas.
Yeah, gearing now toward the end as you're starting to think about, maybe you've had a clear idea of what you want to do the whole time, but maybe you're just making the blocks for fun. Now's a really great time to go and look at all of those blocks to see what you can do with them if you don't have a plan already, because there's lots of great stuff in there. Lots of really good stuff.
Lots of really good ideas from people. So,
yeah.
Okay. I'm standing in the wrong spot.
No, you're fine.
Let's switch back.
Let's switch back.
It's my assigned space right here.
I think that's it. I think that's the examples that we have for this one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I do too. So we're getting closer to the end.
Yeah.
One more video after this.
Yep.
That'll be exciting to talk about the last couple blocks. And good luck with these.
take your time with the crisscross block. Don't let it defeat you. You got this. I promise. Just take your time with it. And reiterating, large pieces. Don't feel like you have to use small pieces. Make them large, especially because you don't have the visual seam allowance, you know, with the paper on the paper. So give yourself extra fabric so that you have plenty to trim away the excess at the end.
Awesome. Good ideas. Okay, great. Have fun. Have fun sewing.